Hi, this is Kelly from paperbeadrollers.com, and today we're going to talk about diamond glaze. Today we're going to talk about glazing paper beads with this wonderful stuff called Judikins Diamond Glaze. It is fantastic for brushing on your beads to make them very hard and very shiny. It is water-soluble cleanup, which makes it great to use in the craft room. Now before we get started, if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button below this video so you can see all of the paper beading tutorials that are coming up. I would love to have you join the channel. On Amazon, a bottle of diamond glaze this size costs about $14. I believe this is the 8-ounce bottle. You can get other sizes from the 10 milliliter, which you would get when you purchase a paper bead kit from us at paperbeadrollers.com, up to the 16-ounce size, which is about twice as big as the one you're seeing here. Now this size will last me several months, but keep in mind that I don't do beads in bulk. I might do 40 beads for a project every 2 weeks or so. Now there are links down in the description to purchase these on Amazon so that you can find them easily. Now they are affiliate links, so I get a slight bit of compensation if you purchase through my link. That helps me to continue doing these tutorials for you. Here's what you'll need to glaze with diamond glaze. You need some type of a tray to put the glaze in. I like to use something small and ceramic like this, or a paint tray works great as well. You will need a paintbrush. Now I generally use one of 3 sizes. My largest brush looks like this. I like to use the flat edge brushes because they give you better coverage on the bead. For larger beads, I use this one. And then for the medium sized beads, I have a smaller brush. And then an even tinier brush for those little small, tiny beads. Now notice that all 3 of these have that flat edge. You will also need some wood skewers. Now it doesn't have to be wood, but that's what I use. I mean, any kind of thin rod will work. Now these hold the beads while they're being glazed and while they dry. I use 3 sizes, and these do a pretty good job of holding all the diameter of beads that you can make with the different paper bead rollers we sell at paperbeadrollers.com. You will also need a foam block. Now what you'll do is put the beads on the skewers to glaze. Once they're glazed, you'll stick the skewer into the block to keep the bead straight up and down while it dries so it doesn't get damaged or nicked. Now you don't have to buy a green block like this. You can use anything around the house that works. Styrofoam packaging from a package of something else that you bought works great. I mean, why not reuse it if you've already got it? To get started, take some of the Judikins Diamond Glaze and just squeeze a small amount into your dish. Now do not shake up the bottle of glaze before you pour it. You will end up with bubbles in your glaze, and those bubbles will end up transferring to your beads. Why are we only putting a little bit into our dish at a time? Because this stuff dries very, very quickly. If you pour too much into the tray, it'll begin to thicken and it'll get difficult to work with in about 10 minutes. That could vary depending on your humidity levels, so just keep an eye on it. I've learned to pour just a little bit at a time to keep the glaze fresh. One more thing you'll want to have nearby if you're doing more than just a couple of beads is a cup of water. I have water here in my jar. Now if you have a lot of beads to glaze, the glaze in your brush will begin to dry, and you're going to need to clean out that brush periodically as you work. So that's what the water's for. Here's my first bead. I'll use my medium brush for this one. If the bead isn't tight on the skewer, it will spin a little bit, and you may need to use your fingernail to hold it in place as you brush on the glaze. One of the reasons I like these flat brushes is that it's easy to get glaze right up to the edges. One thing you want to be careful not to do is glue your bead to your stick. I have done it before. Keep the glaze off that wood skewer if you can. If you do end up getting glaze on the skewer and it glues the bead to the stick, it is not coming off. Now I'll do this teeny tiny bead. I'll switch over to my smallest brush for this one. Now these are going to dry within 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the temperature and the humidity in your house, and then you can put the second coat on. Now I'll stick this in my foam block to dry, and we'll do some more beads. Now I think this one will work well on the medium skewer, and this one as well. Now for the pink zebra bead, I'm going to use the large brush. You should always choose the largest brush that is comfortable to use for the size of bead you're doing, because the more brush area you have, the better your coverage is, and the faster you get done. I mean, imagine if I tried to do this bead with that tiny little brush. I mean, how long would that take? Forever. For this bead, I'm going to switch back to my medium brush. Now, when you pull a brush out of the water, be sure to dry it well on a paper towel before you use it. If there's too much water in your brush when it touches the bead, it'll soak into the paper and completely ruin the bead. Diamond glaze, for the most part, does not change the color of your beads significantly. The colors do tend to look more vibrant, but I think that's more because of the shiny surface than anything else. Now, there are certain papers, like tissue paper, that will get darker with diamond glaze because it soaks in. By this time, the first two beads I did are done drying. I usually test them to make sure they're not stuck to the skewer. If they are, I move them to break the seal. If you get 2 coats of diamond glaze gluing these suckers to the skewer, you are generally not getting this bead off undamaged, so always check them before you do the second coat. Now we'll brush on the second coat. You'll find that the next coats go on much smoother and faster. You've got a slick surface now that you're applying the glaze to, and so it's just a little bit easier to do. All right, we can let these dry. Now here's a close-up look for you. The bead on the right has 1 coat of diamond glaze, and the bead on the left has 2 coats. Can you see the difference? On the second coat, the glaze begins to fill in the ridges of the bead. You can still see them, but the bead begins to look rounder and smoother now. I'll put on a third coat and we'll see how that looks. Now the one on the left has a third coat, and you can see that the light is not reflecting off the ridges anymore because they're even more filled in with glaze. In fact, the camera is even having a hard time focusing because of the glassiness. By 4 coats, there are no more ridges, and the surface is almost completely smooth. The more coats you put on, the more glass or plastic-like the beads look. Something to be careful of is getting bubbles in your glaze, even very small ones. As the layers build up, those tiny bubbles are going to make the glaze look cloudy. So they might not be noticeable in 1 or 2 coats, but by the time you get to 3 and 4 coats, they're going to be noticeable. So make sure that you don't shake the bottle before you pour it, and also move slowly with your brush so that you don't create bubbles as you move across the bead. Now look at this. This is a bead made with the exact same brown paper. So you can see that it does look slightly darker once it's glazed, but I really think that's just that shiny sheen. Seeing the difference between unglazed, 1 coat, and 4 coats is amazing, isn't it? Now that we're finished glazing, you can clean out your brushes and wipe out your tray with soap and water. And make sure you clean them good because any glaze left on there is going to dry hard and your brushes will be ruined. So one more thing that I would love for you to do, if you want to learn more about making paper beads and paper bead jewelry, please subscribe to my channel. I would love to know that you're interested in this craft. And if there are any specific subjects you'd like to see a tutorial on, please leave them for me in the comments. Bye until next time.